Hi, Year 12s. We're looking at TSSM 2018, Topic 2, discuss the impact on the family of Diane's secret. Um, Again, just a bit of a recap on the intro there. These don't exactly 100% align with how I've gone about my arguments, but they're an idea nonetheless if you wanted to think about the impact of secrets in that way, and that is the capacity for them to break bonds, to be a renewing force, to force reflection, or any other impact that you think secrets have on a family or an individual. All right, so topic sentence one. The initially linear nature of Polly's docu-memoir allows the director to establish an image of her mother as a woman who meant many things to many people. So before I get to the unpacking of what the secret is, I thought it's important to set up what is known before you reveal that there are secrets that have been kept. So I would talk about the splicing together of the interview footage at the start, which creates kind of a chorus about who she was as a woman. The idea that she was busy, did all the cooking, etc. And you've got the visual Super 8 footage showing her shushing them. She's managing kind of a flock of children who are all following her around, the bustling kitchen. Her work more speaks about that, and she is just doing many things, and she is obviously many things, therefore, to many people. But the overarching message is that she is a woman who was loved, and a woman that had obviously different sides that she showed to different people, but there is a clarity around who she was in many ways, and that is warm, loving, etc. There's also a truth that comes about, and I think that's kind of hinted at as we move along. It's not the first thing we hear about it, but it comes along as the film progresses. And that is that the truth about her marriage and her desire for a more demonstrative affection. And that is establishes Diane as someone who is dissatisfied or discontent with her life as it was, and her marriage as it was. And therefore, I think in the modern audience, which is who Polly's film is directed at, creates a sense of empathy that Diane didn't feel as much love as she needed to. And if you wanted to come back to this idea of the linear nature, you can then make a comment about how the film progresses through from the, meeting Michael, the marriage to Michael, the birth of Joanna and Mark, which kind of just touched on in the background. That's not a main detail. And then the progression through to her work in Montreal, the conception of Sarah, and the renewal of their marriage, obviously, because they had this one amazing night in Montreal, etc. The debate around Sarah's whether Diane should have an abortion because she was 42 and the stress of that. Having Sarah, her death, and that's the linear nature. It covers her story in about the first 35-40 minutes of the film, and that is what the first half of the film is setting up who Diane is. But there is a hint early, and we might introduce that right at the end, that she was a woman of secrets, but it's not until partway through the film that idea is kind of more fleshed out, if you like. So my second point. This concrete image of a fun-loving, busy and seemingly carefree woman is later challenged by the revelation of her discontentment, subsequent affairs and the ambiguity around Sarah's parentage. Together, these secrets throw the initial image of Diane into chaos, and the ramifications of this secret are deep and widespread. And Michael talks about, and this is with reference to the mirrors, if you'd like to go down that pathway, and his perception that life was beginning again, because he talks about when she came back, things seemed to be all good, but we get this flash of the mirrors and we get this kind of really reflective tone, as Michael says, the mirrors through which you can see what you really look like. And it seems that only now, when he's writing this narrative, which he's written for Sarah and his family about what happened, that he realizes the situation that existed at that time, and he figures out that it wasn't really as rosy as what he thought, and therefore I think this causes him sadness, but I think also regret about, I think he feels guilty about the way he treated Diane and their relationship, because I think he finds fault with himself rather than finding fault with Diane, and I think that is very not heroic is not the word I'm looking for, but I think that's quite selfless of him to do that. and highlights the kind of person he is. So Michael's sense of sadness at the betrayal, realizing that he had not been enough, but also that he, the other points I made before, that he kind of selflessly blames her actions on him, and he sees what he really looked like, but also what Diane really looked like. But again, he says he doesn't want to judge her, so it's more about him judging himself. And the children do the same. And then this smoke and mirrors, which is the moment that kind of sets the reflection into action. You hear Johnny's conversation, and he says he overheard Diane on the phone, and she says she was sure, she wasn't sure who the father was. And whilst this is going on, you see the closing of the door and the opening of the door in the Super 8 footage, and Diane's on the phone. She's fiddling with a tangled cord really anxiously, as people do when they are scared or afraid or unsure about what's going on. And you've also got Michael's narration. So all these things are working together to substantiate this idea that that Diane was deceptive, and that also that she was unfaithful, and that she and that this undoubtedly would have an impact on her family. But obviously then we've got the coming out of that secret, and what was a kind of joke, as you don't look like much like your father, became not very funny eventually for Sarah, Michael says, and a seed of doubt had been planted in her mind, and so she had to pursue this conundrum, which is why she went to find Jeff Bowes and then later Harry Golkin. And the revelation of Sarah's true parentage when she is meeting Harry, and you've got that recreated footage of their first meeting. That isn't the real thing. They didn't film that moment. But when she plays the recreation, which she has directed herself, you've got this dramatic music, which is called Out Into the Storm, and it's by a piano piece by Abraham Lass. And that kind of mimics the traditional film conventions of like creating drama in a kind of a typically problematic moment or that revelatory moment, and that then is the start of this story going into chaos. I wouldn't actually. Sorry, it's not the start. It's just kind of that the climax of that moment, because before that, the chaos is really. You've got the close-up of the kids at the table talking, and there you can see the secret going back and forth. And this image that we seemed concrete of Diane before becomes really disjointed, and we're not sure who to trust and what to trust. And I think that sense or that feeling then stays with the audience for the rest of the film, and until the very end, when Polly essentially hands it over and says, well, you decide what's true or not. I've given you all that I know, as that I found on my journey, but ultimately the decision lies with you to decide what you think is true and what you think is not true. And then what else have we got here? You can look at the ramifications of the secret being revealed, is that obviously Polly is no longer able to see her children as part of her original affair with Michael, and that has ramifications on why she does not stay with Harry and actually keeps that secret till her death. She doesn't tell anybody because of what happened when she had an affair with Michael. She lost her children, and she, as the newspaper said, allowed her desire for her career to overtop her domestic duties. She is unrepentant. She was judged harshly by the people of Toronto, where people lived to work. They were very, there was a rigid social norms that existed. It was a very constrained society. And that reality made her cautious about her decisions. And so when she realized that Michael might not be the father, she refused to follow that action. And so she lied and kept that secret until her death. And the impact of that is later causes people to reflect. All right, then you've got the affair with Harry. What have we got? Susie, Joanna, and Sarah divorced. Yeah, so the impact is that when the girls find out that not only did Diane have an affair with Harry, but also that Sarah's parentage has been thrown into question, and therefore the realization that, or later, sorry, not therefore, later the realization that it is Harry who is the father and not Michael. I think that causes those girls to reflect themselves on where they are at in their lives and their marriages. And seemingly that is an impetus for their divorces from their own husbands. And Susie says something, oh no, I think it's Joanna actually, all three of us got divorced. And it's only really in the making of the film that she comes to this realization. Before that, it seems like they hadn't connected the dots. And so that is the idea that the secrets are, the ramifications of this secret being revealed are deep and widespread. So they go beyond just the immediate person. They have implications for the girls' marriages outside. And in contrast, you can talk about how Mark kind of sought to solidify his marriage. The last bit, and this is where I'd talk about the making of the film and the meta-narrative, because remember this question will ask you, or the criteria for this section, sorry, needs you to talk about the construction of the text. So yes, I've made references here to intertextual, the diegetic or the non-diegetic sounds, sorry, there, the layers of narrative, etc. Like that's all good, but I want to have a little bit more of a discussion about actually the fragmented nature. So it is the fragmented nature of this hybrid form where the lines between fact and fiction are blurred that allows Polly to visually convey the impact of her mother's secret. And what I'm going to say is that she puts this, all this Super 8 footage, which is later revealed when you see the behind the scenes footage, to be somewhat manufactured, or sections of it are manufactured. And that, I think, immediately throws the audience into a sense of questioning what is true and what isn't true. And I think Polly is therefore trying to mimic her own experience on her journey of discovery. She doesn't know what is true or not from this journey. And so, again, like I said before, she hands that over to the audience to decide. The behind-the-scenes footage, which highlighted the existence of manufactured home movie clips, ultimately mimics for the audience the experience Polly herself has undergone as she tries to make sense of the wreckage within which her identity is hidden. So, as in the wreckage of Diane's affair, which reveals the truth about who she is. And you can talk about how the discussion of this what is true and how to convey the truth. So you can talk about the tension between what Michael thinks is true, which is play the whole lot unedited, single interviews, versus what Harry believes, which is Harry tells the story, and Sarah's, which is this kind of democratic, collaborative approach. The three of them, there is this tension about how to convey the truth, and it is in the meta-narrative layer, that is where they talk about the film, that this discussion takes place. And ultimately, Polly asserts that it is her fragmented text with all the pieces coming together a bit like a jigsaw, where she visually shows that true and or fiction and reality are hard to distinguish between, that is the impact of secrets, that you don't know what is true, that you don't know necessarily what to trust. There are some things that are easily knowable, but there are others that are left unknowable. And you can kind of conclude with that quote about they were all kind of in the wake of her tsunami, and that beach footage, you know, that footage really hints at that you can't seem to capture her. You're just catching glimpses of her, but she kind of is continually looking away, and you don't really get an entirely truthful sense of Diane. At the end, you're left wondering, and we, like Polly, wonder, you know, are there other secrets that have not been revealed, because there are lots more questions that are left to ask. So I'll leave you with that, but I've made a point here. Let's have a look at this. Even in the film, she can't fully reach an understanding of the impact of Diane's secrets because there are so many questions. And I also think some people might have hidden the impact or their kind of reaction to her secrets and her betrayal, because Diane has passed, and ultimately we tend to protect the memory of those people who have gone before us and who are no longer around to kind of stand up for themselves or protect themselves. And so there is an idea that, or a sense that, you know, we only get part of the truth from these people, because in many ways they might limit what they say because they wish to protect Diane's memory. Okay, now obviously lots and lots of ideas there because I've spoken for about 15 minutes. You pick what resonates with you and you go with that. These are topic sentences that you're more than welcome to use. You're more than welcome to adapt, and you're more than welcome to change. If you want to go down an alternative path, you might talk about something like secrets make us more sympathetic and united, and thus united by our sense of sympathy, so that there is a sympathy for Diane and that unites her family. You might talk about how secrets make us reflect on our own lives, and therefore that the impact of that reflection. So, the girl's divorced, Michael feels guilty, Mark seeks to solidify his marriage, Johnny, I think he feels a sense of kinship with Diane because he also feels repressed by society. But in the end, the kind of they are united. So that's an alternative way to go about it, but see how you go. If you've got any questions, feel free to email me or come and see me at school.